Hey, doing all right, Clay. Thanks for having me. Yeah, yeah. I was actually right before this call. I was reading some email that came out from Joe Paterno. I'm actually a lifelong Penn State and New Lions football fan, and so yeah, still following what's happening. But yeah, apparently Joe Paterno had some. It's kind of crazy, because he's no longer alive, but he speaks from the grave. Some email came out that he sent. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, my dad was a professor at Penn State, but he did his PhD at Wisconsin. So, yeah, so Wisconsin and Penn State were his two teams. I haven't been, but my dad tells me he always said that it's the most beautiful campus in the United States. Like, because I went to Cornell undergrad, and he came from my graduation, and Cornell's known for having a beautiful campus, but he said he was like, "This is trash." Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, actually, it was discouraged because I did a lot of math and computer science growing up. My dad's a math professor, and he made me do math ever since I was a kid. So actually, going to law school was sort of an act of rebellion because I told him like I was getting sick of math and programming because I was doing it all day, and I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer, and he said lawyers, are horrible people, but I said I was going to go anyway, so I went and I did that. I was a lawyer for basically 2 years, and I had a good time, but I just decided I don't know I was getting kind of sick of it for a number of reasons, and I just wanted to do something different. Like I'd always actually been really into startups and technology, obviously, and I felt like I had just gotten kind of sick of it at the time. But but yeah, so I don't know. When I was a lawyer, I didn't put too much thought into it, but I felt like it was time to move on. So no, no. I was almost certain that I had failed because I did self study, which most people obviously take a course, and I did self study, and I wasn't really disciplined enough, so I I only studied for like a week, and I was very 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 close to failing. So, but yeah, but you terrified the entire time. It's not worth it because I was really, really scared that I failed. And when I found out that I'd passed, I almost started crying. That not because I was so happy, but that's how certain I was that I'd failed. So it was not worth it. I should have just studied more and felt really good. Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's definitely true. It's my girlfriend's she's in law school right now, and she's I keep telling her that it's a sure thing, but she's like, you don't understand. Like things are much different now. So Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think actually by the time I was ready to leave being a lawyer, my parents had come around and they were super excited about it. You know, they were like, "Oh, you're making tons of money, you're making bank, you know, and like living the dream." And I was like, "I think I'm going to go do something else." And they were, not happy about it. But I think, and this is definitely true. Like hanging out in the valley, like you meet. I remember just like I was surprised how many Indian VCs I had met. Like all the VCs, like half of the VCs I met were Indian. And we would start talking just about like the immigrant's dream. And my parents are the same way. They came from Taiwan, and so they kind of there's this sort of like entrepreneurial spirit that you have to have when you like leave your home behind, and you come to the U.S. So ultimately, they sort of believe in the dream, and so they came around. Right. So in law school, I started a company, a legal research company, with a friend of mine, Rodrigo, who's now my co-founder, and we were trying to build a legal research search engine that was like free as a competitor to Lexis Westlaw. That's sort of a duopoly. And we actually built it into something, but it wasn't making any money. We needed to raise for it, and we built it into something, and it started getting a lot of traffic. And the search engine was actually pretty good from a technology standpoint, but we couldn't really work on it full time because I was going to go work, as a lawyer, and he was going to go back to grad school. So that didn't quite work out. And then with Rodrigo again, he 3 years later, 2 years later, he was quitting his PhD program when I was quitting my job as a lawyer. So we went and built Leasely, which is this apartment rental application web app where it makes it super easy for you to create a online rental application and distribute it and manage your applicants and that kind of thing. And we worked on it with a third guy who ultimately, like, I don't know, the team kind of fractured and broke up, and so yeah, that sucked. And then during that time, me and Rodrigo built a bunch of other random junk, none of which you've ever heard of. Um, but I done this actually came out of it. So yeah, I think a lot of just building a bunch of random junk. Right, right. Not really. We never figured out the distribution sort of angle for that because a lot of you have like two kind of like you have two sides. One is like huge, like real estate investment trust, right? And it seems like sort of an insider's game. And then on the other hand, you have like individual small-time landlords. It seems sort of hard to reach, except like through spamming Craigslist, maybe. So our friend Eric is still working on this idea. He has a site called Rocket Lease where he's working on this. And then there was a new Y Combinator company that came out that's working on this called Rentobo or something like that. And I have another friend, Chris, who just started a site called Rent Method, which they started with the idea of Leasely, basically. That's how I met him. And then now they decided that working with individual small-time landlords was like a total waste of time. So now they basically have created their own apartment rental brokerage. So they do everything from start to finish, but they try to make it more efficient through technology. So yeah, lots of people working on this. Hmm. Right, right. Absolutely. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right on point, and it sort of reminds me of like I don't know international aid in third world countries or something like that, and like just people showing up and trying to tell other people what to do and how it should be. So yeah, it's a matter of sort of culture and empathy. Yeah, absolutely. So I done this came out of actually the mind of Rodrigo, who's my co-founder. He wanted to get back into shape, so he used it. So he said, "Let's have this idea. I have this idea where every day we'll have something that sort of nags you to write down what you did that day, and we'll put it into like a calendar, um, so you can be held accountable for what you did that day, and sort of use that as sort of a way to make progress every day and keep track of your progress, reflect on it to get motivated, and use it to track your progress every day. And so we built it out as like a super simple web app, and turns out a lot of entrepreneurs liked it, and we got hundreds of people signed up, and a lot of them told us that they wanted to use it for their companies, and so now we're actually focused on building I done this for companies, which is basically just a really easy way to keep everybody in sync and everyone in the loop. We email you every day, your team every day, and ask what your team has done, and everyone just writes back, and then the next day the whole team gets an email with what everyone got done. Yeah, absolutely. It's $3 per user per month with a 30-day free trial. Yeah, so it's an interesting question. So we are seeing traction. We just launched the paid version a couple months ago, and we're making like 4K a month, which is obviously not very much money, but more than exactly. No, I appreciate that. So yeah, so we're making some money, and our revenue is growing. But right now, it's mostly smaller teams because our company actually doesn't really our product doesn't work very well for bigger companies. So it's mostly for size companies of like say 1 to 100. Our biggest company is Shopify, which is a big e-commerce startup. Yeah, and we're really excited because actually next week we've been invited by the guys at Zappos to go visit, and the Zappos San Francisco office now uses I done this, which is awesome. So we've been talking, yeah, we've been talking to Zappos about getting them to use getting more people in the company on I done this. So super exciting for us. Awesome. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think. Yeah, what you said about Zappos is like exactly the way I feel about them. I sort of admire them so much, and so to be able to have them help shape, the way the product goes to is like super valuable. And yeah, exactly. This sort of, one of the things I found like along this sort of startup journey is being able to, meet a lot of people who want to give feedback, and a lot of it's super valuable, but a lot of it's not quite the way you think about the product. And so it's always just like really probably one of the best feelings I think around as part of what we're doing is meeting a customer who is like really excited about what you're doing, but has this sort of a very similar vision to what you're doing and can add to it. And so I sort of felt that with the guys at Zappos, like they really understand what we're trying to do, and they have also awesome insight into how we can do it better. So it's yeah, it's been great. Yeah, definitely. No, that's cool that you're talking to them about Spindos. I could definitely see Spindos making a lot of sense for them. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we've probably raised like 380 total. So we went to AngelPad, which is an incubator in San Francisco, started by ex-Google people, and so coming out of that, we raised a small seed round, like 360, and around that time, we were still figuring out what exactly we were going to do, like business consumer, like what are we, who are we, like what are we doing, and so eventually we kind of in looking at our traction on the consumer side, we didn't see the kind of insane growth you need. And like everyone these days is like super desensitized to like growth, right? I mean, if you're not like Pinterest, it's like get out of my face. So we didn't want to be in a position where we were beholden, where we had to continue to exist. We had to be able to fundraise because fundraising was very painful for us. So we thought the thing that makes the most sense for us is to try to get to a point where we're at break even and we can sort of determine our own destiny. So we're kind of in this weird like fundraising, and then now we're kind of like bootstrapping ish. I won't like I mean true bootstrappers are obviously more hardcore than we are. They don't have the benefit of a seed round in the bank. So they probably would not like what I'm saying, but we're trying to get to the point where we're at break even, and then go from there. Yeah, exactly, and I think everyone always says that, and it's true. But I think that sort of speaks. The core problem is like yourself. Like you're susceptible to influence when you don't know what you're doing. Even like like for me, I think one of the things that like I would be more ashamed about when I look back on the way that I was when the company started. I mean, just like lessons learned is sort of how suggestible I was and how much I was influenced by other people because we had no idea what we were doing, and because I had the desire to raise the seed round, so I would tell people what they wanted to hear, which is a good sort of when I talked to someone who was very successful in raising money, and I was like, hey, what's your secret to success? And he was like, tell them what they want to hear. So that's sort of the way I went, and I think that can get you somewhere. But I ultimately, like, if you want to build a great company, you have to know where you yourself want to go, right? I mean, that sounds obviously true, but I think that's sort of was important for me to realize. You know, that's that's a question I should know the answer to much more easily. And I mean, I think that the answer to that is like in what exactly, um, it's, so I think the way I approach it personally, not speaking for my co-founder, his opinion is obviously very important, but the way I approach it is sort of what, I mean, I've done this as trying to solve certain problems around sort of unlocking human potential and trying to build a workplace where people, share and celebrate what they get done every day and are excited to go to work, and where people are motivated by intrinsic motivation and excitement over mastering their craft and like doing a great job. And so I guess the thing is you never know. So I guess that's the problem, right? And then we have this sort of approach to solving it, which came through this, progression of a product, right? And so I sort of want to see where the product goes, and where all of this goes. Like, ultimately, not every product can support like a great company. You know what I mean? Like, not every concept is going, even if it reaches its full potential, is going to create a great company or whatever. So I don't begrudge other people who sell their companies, and a lot of them just want to make the biggest influence possible, and a lot of that happens through bigger companies that have, huge reach. So the answer to that, I guess, is in a long-winded way to say, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's a good point. So yeah, we just want to grow the revenue and see if we can get it. I believe that we should be able to get it to a point where we're self-sustaining within 6 months, and then if we believe that we can lean on certain key levers to drive crazy growth, then it might be time to raise money. Otherwise, right, right. Hopefully. Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I feel like I know now that you mentioned him. Now that you mention him, I know I've seen him, and I either have seen him in the context of this is a guy that used I've done this, and has a crazy amount of followers on Twitter, but I have like no idea who he is, or this is a guy that I want to get using I've done this. I don't remember, but I will definitely look into this more. We've got our most sort of famous productivity guy who used I've done this is Dan Pink, who, yeah, the author of Drive, and he's an amazing guy. He's been really generous with his time too, and so yeah, he uses I done this a lot. He's been one of our biggest supporters. And Teresa Amabile, who's a professor at Harvard Business School, who's written this awesome book called The Progress Principle. She also uses us, and her book is about how this 95% of managers are wrong in thinking that the number one motivator for people at work is financial incentive. And also, most managers are wrong in thinking that people perform better under pressure. Rather, the number one motivator for people at work is actually the sense of making, daily progress toward a meaningful goal. And people actually work best and are most creative when they're happy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the things that I always feel I hear Tony talking about, is I think one of the things he's most proud of is that after work, Zappos people hang out with Zappos people. I think that's really cool, actually. No, absolutely. I appreciate that. That's okay. So I would say that I would pick New York just because I love New York more as a city, and that sort of trumps everything. And that's sort of, so sort of break that down. I would say that the great thing about New York is New York, and that not everyone is a startup dude. And in San Francisco, not everyone is a startup dude, but but it's just insane. I mean, it is crazy how many people are everyone I know there just does startups. And when I'm done with work at the end of the day, I don't want to go out and talk more about startups. That's why I just go home and sit in my room and don't talk to anybody. So that's, but I don't want to, So anyway, but on the flip side, in San Francisco, I think the best thing is that you meet a lot more people who are around the same place where you are, like sort of in the same stage. And people who are just ahead of you, who have like maybe just kind of made it a little bit more than you. And it's an awesome feeling to get encouragement. And I feel like advice, generally, like I'm not big into advice. Like I feel like advice, I don't know, everyone's always trying to tell you their opinion, but it's awesome to meet people who are in the same stage as you, who are willing to listen to you and totally sympathize and understand everything that is happening on that front. So yeah, so like, there's this guy, Kevin Lee, who I know from San Francisco, and he's a guy who, has had a successful startup, and he's just, he might even be a couple years younger than me, but he got really excited about I'd done this, and he reached out, and we started talking, and he had a vision for the product that was something that sort of made me proud, and so like it was just awesome to get encouragement, and he's like hitting me up all the time, sending me articles and like trying to pump me up when things, when I get down a little bit, and in New York, I feel like there are fewer of those people, and yeah, you just don't. I mean, because it's less mature, you just don't meet as many of those people. Does that make sense? Yeah. Mhm. I just want to put it this way. Um, so I, I guess I don't believe in sort of like so I would put it this way. I believe in lean 100% and I would define it like this. The lean is about answering the question, how do you know if what you're doing is making any progress, right? How do you know if what you're doing is making the product better? How do you know if you're getting better? And how are you going to measure yourself, right? It's everyone I know to a certain extent is just building a bunch of random junk. Like, you know what I mean by that. You have no idea what you're doing, and you're just changing stuff. You know what I mean? You're just like you're just changing stuff. That's all you're doing. You're just like changing a bunch of random junk. You don't know if what you're actually doing is what you're doing is actually making your product better. So to the extent that that's what lean is about, which like that's what I believe it's about. I believe that is 100% on point. Like your decision making needs to be informed by qualitative and quantitative data and your own vision and gut, right? And like you can't just if you just go change a bunch of random junk, you're not going to go anywhere. Like if you just if pivot to you means just like work on something else, like do something different, like that's not that's not going to help you, right? And I don't mean this. I'm not talking bad about anybody else. Like for me, like that's a problem to try to make sure that like you're actually getting better because it doesn't. You don't. This guy Will Pang had a good article about this the other day. It's like you don't. It can't be all or nothing. And a lot of people have that mentality, and I had that mentality too. It's like why measure anything when if why measure anything when if it blows up, I'll know it because I'll be a billionaire, right? And if it doesn't, then it's not worth it. It's not worth doing, right? Right? And that mentality is like it's really hard to get anywhere because you're not going to learn anything and you're not going to develop the self-awareness about your product that you need to make the tweaks to improve it to actually give yourself a chance of making like a sort of a phase change in adoption progress, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. Mhm. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that makes me think about. Sorry, did I cut you off? That makes me think about. So I was talking to Toby Lutke, who is the CEO of Shopify, who's like a. He's just been like an awesome guy, and he told me he's like the thing about advice is that all of it is right, and you get advice, and he's like the thing about it is all of it's right, but the question is how to prioritize, right? And so what order to do it in? And like that sounds really simple, but actually it's a really hard question because the question actually I think boils down to what can you do? Like what are the changes that you can make or what can you build that are actually are the levers of growth that will make something happen, make something happen more than something else, right? There's like two competing things you could do, one of which, could increase revenue by 30% month and over, the other could be 15%. So it's like, which one do you do? Well, you do the one that is able to drive more, right? And how do you determine that? Well, you determine that through, that's where you determine that by through looking at your metrics and talking to people exactly in the way that you did. It's like so. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, and that's exactly how you can prioritize it, which is I think is the hardest problem. One of the hardest problems. Yeah. So I use Workflowy, which is cool. I use Trello. Yeah. They're both great. We use Asana too. I keep Inbox Zero, which I actually used to be notorious for having like 250,000 emails in my inbox or whatever, but I now keep Inbox Zero, and actually it makes me feel great. Um, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. And one of the things that we're wrestling with right now is like if say I create a ticket for you for a bug, like I don't want if I do that in GitHub or say I assign you a support email. If I do that for you, you're going to get an email for it, and then you're going to stop doing what you're doing, and like say you're building the product, you're going to stop doing that, and then you're going to go deal with this ticket because you maybe think that I want you to do it immediately or whatever, or just because it interrupted you, and that is something we're still trying to figure out. Like I hate that. Yeah, no, definitely. I think there are a lot of awesome productivity tricks. No. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that sounds pretty neat. Yeah, yeah, I'm actually pretty lame when it comes to iPhone apps. Like you should have seen my phone before I had an iPhone. Like I just got an iPhone because you couldn't I couldn't be respected as like an actual tech person if you saw my phone before before I had an iPhone. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, it's like cracked screen. Um, and I was constantly like reassembling it because it was just falling apart. But yeah, dude, I use like I basically I use like three apps, four apps, like Instagram, uh, Twitter, and Google Maps, and like my email. But I'd like to give a shout out to this concept, which I think is cool, and someone's going to do it right. Two companies I know are working on it, Doppler and Chifungo, but I hopefully Chifungo will change their name. But basically, the Instagram of video, I think will be super cool. I know this has nothing to do with productivity, but yeah, but it's made me want to record more video, and I think video is sort of underutilized. So hopefully something cool will happen. Yeah, social cam scares me, but because I got sick of clicking all their stuff on Facebook, so I have. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I told you about this original concept about legal research, sort of simple legal research tool competitor to Lexis Westlaw that I worked on before, and I think it's always sort of this like struggle. Like for me, I talked about like going to law school is sort of an act of rebellion, but one thing I always refuse, like yeah, one thing, I mean, when I was a lawyer, everyone wanted me to do IP work because I had a competitive advantage because I was a computer science major and I was an engineer. But I didn't want to do IP because I became a lawyer, so I didn't have to do that, right? But anyway, I guess my point is, there's always sort of this opportunity to leverage talent that you have and like unique skills that you have. Like I'm a lawyer that is technical, therefore I should do a law startup because I would kick everyone's butt. Like that's theoretically. On the other hand, like you never want to do what you're supposed to do because that sucks, right? But in any case, I feel like anyway, if I weren't doing I've done this, I would probably be trying to build this sort of. I think there's incredible opportunity right now to build something that makes the law more free and easily consumable. Democracy. Yeah, I wish them success. I think they have an awesome concept, and I've used their site, and it can be a really great tool for lawyers. But obviously, they need to get out of the mentality that the actual documents themselves are their sort of service, and that is sort of their value add, and think more about how they can add value through like do actual legal advice and that kind of thing. it's hard to give away stuff for free. You know, it's hard to ask people to give away stuff for free, basically. Yeah, so I mostly blog on the I Done This blog, so check it out, blog.idonethis.com, and then obviously idonethis.com, and then on Twitter I'm Smalter, which is the handle I use to play StarCraft under, SMALTER. All right, thanks for having me, Clay. Really, see you.